All right, guys, ticket expiration. All right, so you submit a ticket but get diverted to a different job and aren't able to start that job for 19 days. So you've called in a ticket, but you haven't been able to start that job for 19 days. What do? Do you commence excavating if the marks are still there? Do you refresh the marks with your own paint? Do you look for obvious signs of new utility installation and excavate if you don't see any? Or D, do you submit a renewal request? Wow, I got this one right. D is the right answer. What's the life of a ticket in the state of Missouri? Still can't retire. Visible and usable is what the law says. So in the state of Missouri,
we joke quite a bit. We're hoping that someday we're going to go to a meeting, and if we hear no one say 10 days, then we're going to retire. But so far we haven't found that yet.
But the 10 days does come into play. So in the state of Missouri, a ticket does not expire as long as the marks are visible and usable. The only caveat to that is you have to start your work within 10 days. So if you've called in a ticket and you've begun excavation, say you got a 2-mile pole job you're doing, you called in that ticket, you start working on day 5, you can work on that ticket as long as those marks are visible and usable. Don't matter if it's 2 months out. But if you haven't started your work within 10 days, D would be the right answer here. This guy didn't start for 19 days. So if you haven't started your work within 10 days, you have to call in a renewal ticket. What's the difference? All right, so the reason that was put like that is say if you called in a ticket and say that you didn't get out there for 2 months but the marks were still good, say let's use a subdivision. Could there be a chance other utilities were put in during that time? Does that make sense? But if they think if you're out there working on that job constantly, you might see that stuff getting put in. So that's why it was like that. Yep. 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 The law says you got to commence excavation within 10 days. What's that mean? That's just the way the law reads on that. That was their thought process, but you are correct. If you leave and come back, if you've started within 10 days, you can continue working on it. And that just means turning dirt. You can go out there with a shovel. Yeah. Yeah. That's all the law says. You got to commence excavation within 10 days.
Yeah, and it's a very good point what you bring up. I mean, you got to be aware of your job site, right? You got to look around. So if you're going to leave a job and you're going to be gone for a couple weeks, even though you've already started, you get pulled off, you're going to go back. I mean, you got to be smart, right? You got to get out there. Oh, well, I still see some flags out there, but I'm not sure. Guys, call in a renewal. Okay? If you need it, call it in. If you can't excavate safely, call in a renewal. That's what it's there for.
All right, everybody's going to get this one right, correct? All right, so you start excavating on a project that is taking longer than expected. After 38 days, the marks are still visible and usable. You've started your job. Day 38, marks are still visible and usable. What do? A, call in a renewal every 10 days. B, refresh the marks with your own paint. C, call the locator directly to have them touch up the marks. Or D, continue to excavate as long as the marks are visible and usable. Still can't retire.
Who's not listening? Who's the 9% in the room said call in every 10 days? All right. What did Nick just say? We can talk about this all day if you want. We're going to make sure you guys understand. You don't have to call in your tickets every 10 days. Guys, what's that? Other than it costs money. It costs a lot of money because the utility has to respond to every ticket. That's a legal document. Guys, we get a report every day that talks about renewal tickets. A ton of money gets spent on renewals. So utilities are rolling out there because they got to go out there and market. They get a renewal. They got to go, right? It's a legal document. They have to respond to that ticket. They got to clear it out of the system, all that good stuff. Guys, if you don't need them, don't call them in. Call in what you can use. If you need a renewal, by all means, call it in. If you can't safely excavate, there's not a utility in this room that would care about getting extra tickets if you couldn't dig safely over their utility. What they do care about is when they got to constantly roll out to one and put fresh paint on the ground or look at it again when they don't need to. It is written in the statute of the law that they can bill you for excessive renewals if they're not needed. Okay, we don't see that happen very often, but it is out there. So keep that in mind. Call in what you need.
Do you guys have